Hi, welcome to Tourism X Meetings, where we talk all things relating to the ever evolving travel and meetings and events and destination marketing arena. I'm Gerrit Davids, founder of TalkX TV, where we host Tourism X as a content channel. And I'm joined today by Justin Hawes, Managing Director of Scan Display, a leading exhibition supply company and a board member of the Event Greening Forum. Um, Justin, just for starters, kindly tell us more about the Event Greening Forum and what it does in the event industry ecosystem. Welcome.
Thank you, Gerrit. Thanks. Good to be here, listeners and viewers. The Event Greening Forum focuses on trying to make the events industry more sustainable or more green, whichever word you want to use. And it comes out of the reason that in our events industry, we often set things up. We transport stock and we transport people, and we have huge carbon emissions. And often the stuff is set up for a day or two or a week, and then it's thrown away. We also have food waste. We cater for people. We sometimes over cater, and then there's a lot of food waste. So there's a lot of waste in our industry, and we, myself and another person, Grace Stead, thought it was important to actually tackle this problem. And we created an organization more than 10 years ago called Event Greening Forum. So we focus on business events, conferences, exhibitions, business events, and making them greener and more sustainable, and reducing the carbon footprint for those events. So that's what the Event Greening Forum does. So we're a non-for-profit organization. We've got over 50 members within the meetings industry.
Okay, thanks for that introductory part there, Justin. So the forum promotes a net zero events pledge. What specific resources or support does it offer to event organizers to help them to navigate the roadmap and make the transition smoother towards the race to achieve net zero?
Okay, so I think what's important, we need to pull this back a bit before current times, is the industry, like Event Greening Forum, we felt very passionate about the waste we have and the carbon emissions that we create. About 5 years ago, there was a couple of organizations in our industry internationally got together, and they formulated a pledge about 2 years ago, where we pledged to reduce our carbon emissions by 50% by 2030 and by 100% by 2050. So that's net carbon. So it's not, you're still going to have emissions, but there are certain ways of reducing them and certain ways of offsetting it. So I think that, this is a global thing. It's not just a South African thing or an African thing. And there's an organization called, Net Zero Carbon Emission Events Initiative. And there's actually a website that you can look at where it actually gives a whole lot of resources. And I think you talk about resources, it's in a development phase. So what happened was we realized there's this problem. A couple of people pledged in the industry. Some people pledged to go net zero, some pledged to support. And now we're going down the road. So there is resources on the Net Zero Carbon Initiative website, which actually shows you how you can actually lower your carbon for your event. And also on our website, we've got also some resources, Event Greening Forum. Unfortunately, we're redoing our website. So those resources they'll be available again in a month or two's time. But welcome to send us a mail if you need any of those resources and help. So it's a global thing. It's not just a South African thing, and there are resources on their website. And it's a national thing, international. It's borderless, this whole initiative.
Okay, great. And the pledge mentions the net zero carbon events pledge mentions that collaborating with partners and suppliers. Can you elaborate a bit on some of the practical examples of how event organizers can work with these stakeholders to reduce emissions throughout the event's life cycle, and also perhaps call on the Event Greening Forum as a partner or advisory stakeholder?
Yeah, so I think, for us as an organization, we do promote, sustainability in events. We're not consultants, but we have got consultants. So if you reached out to us, we could actually advise. Some of our members are consultants and they could help you. So we don't specifically help entities in their process. We'd rather just refer them to consultants. We try and look at the whole broader education picture and awareness picture. But let's take an example. For instance, food waste. So food waste is you go to an event, everybody caters, they then over cater, and then what happens to that food? That food's thrown away in the bin. So the other ways is to, if it is disposed and it can't be, firstly to go to food bank. There are a lot of charities out there that could use that food. So if there's extra food, one can also make sure if it's thrown in the bin, it goes through to composting rather than going to landfill and just sitting in the landfill. And in terms of budgeting and preparing for the event, it's important that organizers get the right numbers. So if 100 people say they're going to come, 100 people won't come. Cater for 80 or cater for 70, your market, and then work accordingly. And then in terms of your choice of your food, choose food that, lasts a bit longer so it can go to food bank or, those are the kind of decisions that need to be made. Obviously, there are other elements in terms of food. Less meat is preferable because it's got less carbon emissions in the process with vegetarian. So that's just an example of food. And are there a lot of different other elements? There's transport, there's food, there's water, there's electrical, there's a whole lot of other areas that one can work on. So I just mentioned food as an example and a quick story, but I could be sitting here all day talking about the different elements here that one can look at. But there's a good example on food. And on our website, there's a great resource that we did for 2010 World Cup. I think our existing website is still working, www.eventscreening.co.za, and there's a great handbook. There was a handbook that was done for Gauteng province. There was a handbook done for Durban, for eThekwini, and there was a handbook done for Cape Town. And they've got some great input, just simple things to, ensure better, lower carbon emissions and less waste in the process.
Yeah, thanks, Justin, because I wanted to ask a question as to whether anybody has made available a tool where you can input your data of your past events. I know it's very difficult if you haven't done it before, but for starters, if you have data available as opposed to, say, for example, travel or staff from Cape Town to Johannesburg for an event, and insert that data into the tool, and then the tool can help you to create a target to reduce your carbon emissions. Would we have something like that in the market?
So it's quite a difficult thing to, just to have a tool just to measure those kind of elements. What I would suggest, if somebody get a hold of a consultant, we don't have a tool. We've got guidelines on our website as to what event greening forum guidelines, and that's a very good thing to get hold of. But we don't have a tool like you're looking like for a carbon footprint calculator. There are tools out there, but I think what, in terms of I would get a consultant involved and then manage that process. And, it's not, everything's different. So, you might have an event in Cape Town with a lot of people, but everybody's coming from Cape Town. You have a lower carbon footprint then. Or you might have another event in Durban and everybody's flying in from Europe, hosted by us and things. So it's quite difficult to, every event is different. But in terms of there are carbon calculators out there. There are carbon footprint calculators. And through Net Zero, there are development of these calculators that is happening.
Okay, great. And the Net Zero Carbon Events Initiative pledge, just the Net Zero, race to Net Zero in itself has got a 2050 target. And what are the interim milestones or key achievements that event organizers can focus on in the next 5 to 10 years, especially now with the immediate target being 2030? What advice would the forum dispense to event organizers to help achieve those 2030 and 2050 targets?
Yeah, so I think there are a couple of things. I think firstly, one needs to do a measurement of where you are. So you need to, and whether you can use carbon footprint calculators for different elements, and then measure where your event is at the moment. And then, if you can't measure, you can't manage. So that would be a start. And then you would say, well, we're going to set this much target for next year. We're going to set this much target for next year. It's quite hard because in terms of the definition, it's level 3. So level 1 is your direct impact. So that's like if I walk somewhere, or if I get in my car and drive somewhere, that's a direct impact. Level 2 is the maybe electrical stuff. This is a very high level, definition. And level 3 is the external thing. So people fly into your event. And that's a challenge. I think if I look at a lot of events, the biggest carbon footprint comes in with flights, with people flying into an event. And that's a very difficult thing to deal with. I think in terms of, we're looking also to the airlines to reduce their carbon. There are obviously a whole lot of initiatives out there. And I think that will really transform things. And that's a lot out of your own hands. You can only do so much. So I think look at where you are in terms of your various carbon emissions in various elements. Unfortunately, net zero carbon events initiative is very much carbon emission driven, and it doesn't cover other elements like the softer elements. So like job creation is a key thing in terms of buying local. So we have often events where we promote local vendors to overseas people at the event to buy local crafts, and that's not measured in an emission point of view. That's just measured because you're creating jobs, and that's what sustainability is about. So unfortunately, there are limitations, but you've got to start you've got to start somewhere, and you've got to measure somewhere. But there are some limitations with net zero carbon events initiative in terms of those other elements that aren't actually they're not measured. Yeah.
No, great. Thanks, Justin. So just as a concluding remark, in terms of extending an open invitation to people who are in the business events arena who have not heard about the existence of the Event Greening Forum, as to how they can reach out, as well as perhaps becoming members for that matter.
Yeah, so I mean, we've got a website. Have a look at our website. Drop us an email. We'd love you to join us. We are very much, this net zero carbon initiative is the biggest thing that we've had as an organization in the last, since we formed in the last 12 years. And we are having regular discussions on it. So we had a think tank session. The head of JMIC, which is the Joint Meetings Industry Council, and the person who's internationally responsible for driving the figurehead of, or the person driving this whole initiative in our industry, Alexander Ellis, was out here in South Africa in February, and we actually had a wonderful session with him. And so we as an organization are driving it. Become a member, follow us on Facebook, follow our newsletters, because we are continually having updates. We had a talk yesterday on waste. So we're specifically looking at waste and how to streamline waste and look at doing, managing waste in a better way. So we're very much doing a lot of education in this field. Like I say, please follow us on Facebook, sign up, drop us an email, info@eventgreening.co.za, or go to our website and be on the newsletter, because that's what we're about. We're about sharing knowledge, sharing information. That's who we are as an organization.
Okay, thank you. That was Justin Hawes, Managing Director of Scan Display, a leading exhibition supply company in the events industry, and also board member of the Event Greening Forum. Thank you for your time and insights, which is very much appreciated. That's where we will leave it for now, and thank you for watching Tourism X on TalkX TV.